Welcome to Pure Love from Puerto Rico, Season 2, Episode 8.
Hey everyone, we are so excited to be talking to you from Puerto Rico. We needed to get away. I came here to do a little work and also to visit family.
And I'm the carry-on package.
And Joaquin's upstairs right now. We've been here and we plan on coming to Puerto Rico a lot more often to do some healing work down here and to just get involved in what's happening in Puerto Rico, just be more close to our family and just be on the ground. So we're really excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah, and this trip has been lovely and also hard because I've been having some massive migraines. So I've been trying to, sift through that.
And I know after, Hurricane Maria, there you can still see that there are some issues that they're dealing with, we had a very interesting beginning of our trip. The first 3 days we had no running water. Mm-hmm. So we had to be really creative. I won't get into details, but we got pretty creative.
But it was also humbling because it wasn't this reaction we had. It was like, damn, so many people have not gone with water or electricity for so long. And we managed as we did in the past when things like this happen. But it was just like, this is still happening and it's intense, but I'm happy to be here and soak up just the energy and the love of the people doing beautiful, amazing, restorative and healing work here.
I don't want to leave. I'm dreading it.
Shout out to Circuito Queer. Yes, they brought me here and I got to talk at the University of Puerto Rico about gender fluidity as a gender identity. So that was awesome. Did some some work on talking about BDSM and the healing aspects of BDSM, and just had some great connections here. So today we wanted to do 2 short topics. We were thinking a lot about this, and the first topic we want to talk about is, since the holidays are coming up, we don't really celebrate the holidays, and so some of them make me very angry, but no judgment. Some people do, some people don't, and I'm talking specifically about Christmas and New Year's and all that. But also that horrible holiday, the thing that people call Thanksgiving. We absolutely don't celebrate that. But we know that sometimes when you're being a survivor, going to see family can be really, really hard, whether you celebrate these things or not, or have political ideas about these things or not. It's always tough. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then in the second topic, we wanted to talk about telling the truth. And that came up when I was talking to Aisha from the Just Beginnings Collaborative when she was in the midst of organizing her conference on From No to Love, which was amazing, and it was in DC. We were talking about stuff and family, and I said, we're all liars. And she said, what do you mean? I said, as survivors, we're liars. We lie about what happened to us. We lie about the extent of the damage. We lie to save other people's feelings despite our own. Sometimes we lie to ourselves, right? And so thinking about the lies that we're embedded in, what does it look like to actually tell the truth? And I was thinking in the more context of how you tell the truth to your children, but I think there's other ways we can think about it as well. So here we go. First topic, the holidays, and really, and even beyond the holidays, how do you navigate being with your family of origin as a survivor, and really, especially if your family does not acknowledge it, or the harm-doer or perpetrator is in the household or is known to everyone. What kind of dynamics and stuff does that bring up? Yeah, and I know for me, I think it's harder now. These last couple of weeks, maybe months, I don't know.
Months.
I've been struggling a lot about what it means to be an adult survivor of child sexual abuse, because I don't know. I think if I said I am a survivor of rape and sexual assault, I tend to believe that people see that as an immediate thing. Although sometimes people, you know, ask about time frame, but that more so happens with child sexual abuse, like because it happened as a child. There's this huge distance between being that child and the impact of that and being an adult, you know.
But you know that always like confuses me, because people, when it comes to other things, they can see how something that happened as a child could affect you now. Like, you were burned in a fire, now you're always like afraid of being around flames, like, or you saw a scary movie and now you're afraid of clowns or something, you know.
Right.
Like, so people could register that and be like, oh, that happened when you were a kid, but I mean, it was so traumatic for you that it still affects you now. But I think because the topic is so sensitive for people, they don't know how to navigate or how to bring it up or how to support. They just rather just avoid it altogether and be like, oh, that happened in the past, you should just let it go, because it's such a loaded conversation.
Loaded, scary, all of it. Yeah, and so it's a distancing of it, right? And so people kind of like, you know, just either get over it, or it happened so long ago, how could that still impact you? And that's kind of what's happening with me right now. Just the miseducation or the misunderstanding of the outcomes of CSA. And so, you know, I'm 48 now, and it's affected me consistently throughout. Of course, things shift, but it is very much still present in my life, and as it will when I am 60 and 75 and so forth and so on. But right now, I think my family is having a really difficult time understanding the impact on me, one, and then how even to navigate the feelings of knowing who it is and interacting with that person as well. And really just like about right now what's happening, it's just heartache, you know, just heartache. So in these moments of holidays where people are expected to come together, I think we all have some choices to make, right? One, do we have to go? And I say have to because I don't know everyone's situation. I don't know what the family dynamics are. I don't know what your status is. I don't know. So I cannot say don't go, right? Everybody has their choice. So if you have to go, then how do you navigate going in those spaces? And if you've ever thought about the option of actually saying no, because I actually never thought of that in this context, you know, like I've never thought of saying no when family stuff comes up in terms of like it connecting to my CSA stuff. And I've always pushed through it in the past. And so I think that's the first question. Can I say, do I want to be there? What would I get out of it? Would I be harmed from this? And sometimes whatever answer you pick, you might be harmed either way. And is there a goal, right? Like, is there a goal? And I would say, you were saying before, like having a support person, your buddy system or something, because that is a really difficult thing to navigate if you have to be there.
Yeah, someone that can help be a buffer or a deflector, if anything, or your spokesperson if you can't speak. So I think that's definitely important, because I know, you know, now knowing what I know now and what I continue to learn as an adult about, you know, your CSA and our family and just everything. I know that, I mean, before even I didn't really understand it, I still was kind of like, you know, like advocating and stuff and making sure that nobody told this person about you, anything, like just anything, where you were living, what you were doing, what you look like anything. Mm-hmm. And then if they were trying to give me a message for you, like I would just be like, no.
Sometimes dismissing something is because you just don't want to accept it, right? Like, so if you still behave in the same manner that you did before, you're not acknowledging that there's an issue. So I think some people do that either consciously or subconsciously, right? And so buddy system is absolutely, if you are able to have one, and a buddy can know what's going on, but they actually don't have to know everything. You could literally say, me and my family don't get along. If this particular person tries to come up to me, can you be a buffer?
If I text you SOS 911, that means we need to go, or
we
find
have
an excuse, eye contact,
signal, or something. And you say, if I give you the signal, that means we have to go. Like, you give an excuse that we need to go. So that is great. It's an exit plan. It's a blocking plan, and that person is really there to check up on you, and they don't have to know what it is in fact about. And I think if you're able to prepare, sometimes asking questions to whoever is organizing the space, knowing when the harm-doer is going to arrive, when they're planning to leave. I know that it was helpful for me to know the exact time that person was coming, because I had to brace myself. I had to just get ready to see their face and to allow all of those feelings to rush in. So sometimes if you can get that information, that's great. Or if you don't know that information, maybe being in a space in the house or the space in the house that is away, that you don't get to see the front door, and your buffer person can let you know once that person arrives, so that you can be ready and they can be with you. Another thing is having that buffer person be the one in front of you all the time, so no one can come towards you without them in front of you. So it depends all on your family dynamic, how people communicate with you and all that. But those are just some tips that I can think about in terms of having to share space with the harm doer and essentially, bystanders. So anything else? Well, I think in these instances, I was talking to Mandy as well, because I'm talking about it as a survivor, but then I was thinking, just like you said, we sometimes don't get to see our family as much as we want, and so when these opportunities come up, we go. So we see cousins that we haven't seen in months or years or anything like that. So in those instances, then what is a tip for someone doing prevention? Because this is the healing part. I am trying to do healing work for myself and take care of myself and create boundaries for myself. But what is the prevention piece of that? Like going into seeing family, some that you know a lot, very well, and then some that you don't know at all.
Well, I know personally, like in the last year, we've met a lot of family. Well, earlier this year, my grandmother from my father's side passed away. So we went to the funeral, and I saw people that I either haven't seen since I was a baby or just ever met at all. They've only seen me through pictures. So that was a big thing. And I know, like, everyone's like, oh my God, the baby, the baby, the baby. So, like, everybody wanted to pass him around and stuff. But I made sure that he was always within my eyesight. I was never too far away from him. Like, if he was at one table, I was at the next table. And I was every 3 minutes or so, I'm like making eye contact with him, or I would walk up and be like, hey baby, see if he's all right, and then go get something to eat, come back. So he was never alone for too long, and I never let anybody change his diaper. That's a big thing for me. I know like when I go visit mommy and stuff, I'm the only one who changes his diaper. I think Christina, my cousin, changed his diaper like once or twice if it's like overnight and she's watching him. But other than that, I don't want too many people dealing with his diaper. And also, if there's a harm doer that I've been made aware of, they're definitely not coming near him. Even if it's like, oh, well, it was 40 years ago. Ew, I don't care. Right. I'm not why would I want to introduce my son to this person? So
then for me, I would take that another step further and connects to the episode we did about the protection plan. Right, for me, even in retrospect, because even though I did this verbally with family members, in retrospect, like writing this down, really thinking about what is it that you don't want people to do, because often we don't say anything until it actually happens. And you're like, oh no, don't do that, because I don't want anybody doing that, or I don't allow my child to do this or that. Rather than having to correct someone over and over and over, what about that protection plan? So one of those things I would say is, I am the only one that changes his diaper.
Or if there's a designated person.
Right. Or if you know there's a harm doer there, you just say, I do not feel comfortable with my child being alone with, and name said person. You don't have to say why, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
You're the parent.
Right, so I don't feel comfortable with said person being alone with my child. Like, I really believe that you have to be absolutely specific, because we make assumptions that everyone has the best interest at heart. And even if they do, it might not be the best interest that equates with your own, right? It can be very different.
And then on top of that, that's a whole thing where people are like, oh, well, that's your aunt, that's your cousin, that's your this. And for me, that doesn't make any difference to me. Like, if you are somebody who's harmful and there's a possibility that you could hurt my child, I don't care who you are, you're not going near him. Mm-hmm. So that whole, oh, it's blood, doesn't mean shit to me.
Right. Also, it's like, no one can spank my child.
Oh, hell
no one, so it's like really thinking it through. And, you don't necessarily have to like list 15 things down the line to someone, but it's also good to just keep that in your mind, because if you are interacting with that list and really keeping it fresh in your mind, you're really thinking about all of the ways that your child interacts with people. And if you continue to say things like, oh, it's family, remember that child sexual abuse is perpetrated 90% of the time by family members or people we know in our communities. Exactly. So we need to be really thinking about these things. And I would suggest, if you have the privilege enough, if you're able to, if you have agency within your family, depending on what the dynamic is, you verbalize it loudly to people, even whether it's in individual conversations with people, telling them, oh, I don't allow anyone to do this, and I don't want that, and I don't want this, and actually having the repercussion, like what would happen, say, if someone, I don't know, decided to let them hang out with the person you said no, or to change their diaper, then what would that be? We always have to think about what that repercussion is, because we're never prepared. And so if we don't take action, whatever that action is, then that says that this is okay. What I said doesn't matter, because you can, so we have to be advocates and, and protect our children, right? So what could that look like if someone, and I guess it depends on the degree, right? If they're with the harm doer, then that's a very big thing. If they, I don't know, I can't even think of something much more smaller, but something that you can say, I told you that I did not want
something
that.
About, what they eat, just little things like that. It just shows a level of respect for your parenting.
Respect, consent, and all of these. Like, I told you that I did not want my child to have that. You gave it to them anyway. I don't feel comfortable, and so this means for me, I don't think you can take care of them, or I can't even think of anything right now. But
well, so, along those lines, like, I know when you said that sometimes things come up and then you like react to it afterwards.
Right.
Like, for example, we went to the family reunion, not the little mini family reunion back in September, and one of my cousins was drunk, and she picked up Joaquin and she kissed him on the mouth, and I was like, no, like, it was just an immediate, like, don't ever, like, why would you do that? I was so upset, because I'm just like, why would you ever kiss somebody else's baby on the mouth? Like, I just, no, it bothered me so much, and I'm like, I didn't think I had to say that, because I'm like, she has kids too, so I'm like, you wouldn't want anyone to kiss your kid in the mouth, like, why would you do that?
Exactly.
I was so upset.
But you said, like, you would expect that everybody has their different expectations, so I don't expect shit. I'm going to think about these things clearly, and I'm going to verbalize them, and then if they come up, if I didn't think about them, I'm going to add that to that list, because it's just good to see how things shift, what you have to have extra protections for, and then as they get older and have agency, right? Because we're not protecting them to the point where we're isolating them, we're protecting them and teaching them, so that at some point they're able to have their own agency and speak and take care of themselves while we take care of them as well, until they become adults, right? So that's the goal. So yeah, and thinking about that as a survivor, think about what would be helpful for you. What would you want to happen? What is the goal? Do you have someone that can be there as your friend, your buddy, your buffer? Do you have, are you able to say, yes, I can go, or no, I do not want to go, or I can't go? And if you don't go, what do you do to take care of yourself in those moments where family members are all together and you're not there? Do you have chosen family? Do you have a healing ritual that you can do, or write? Contemplate? Like, there are many things that we can tap into to take care of ourselves and just change these patterns, break the patterns. And how do we prevent these things? So thinking about that prevention plan we did in last one of the episodes, and being very specific about how do we interact, what are the boundaries that we set in that prevention work. Any last words?
No, we'll just go on to the next topic.
Okay. All right. Part 2. So this one was about, the lying. I've been thinking a lot about that in several ways. You know, like lying, like I said when we first started, like we lie about what happened to us because we're totally afraid. We lie, you know, about the extent of the harm, these things, but also like I was thinking about lying to our children. And I'm not talking about lying to our children in terms of if we're survivors. Lying to our children in terms of information, and we could talk about that in terms of sex and human sexuality, or just in general. Like, because the thing that's funny to me. This is the thing that's funny to me. When we think about how a lot of kids learn about sex, aka through porn, right? Or through even TV stuff, like movies about romance and stuff like that, all of the things that we learn, it actually is based in a fantasy, right? I mean, some things are pulled from reality, but it's really based in fantasy. What is it? The storybook romances and fairy tales. That's all fantasy. Pornography, for the most part, is fantasy, right? And we live in this fantasy bubble, which to me is like we can say these are lies, these are lies, and then from those lies we have to construct
What the truth is.
Well, but we have to construct our plan for our life, right? And realize that was not the truth at all. And so where's the line between fantasy and reality? And where do we stop with fantasy with our children? Where does it bleed into reality? Or do we omit fantasy altogether in terms of, and I'm talking about like the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, talking about the reality around sex that, you know, we teach it usually in a heteronormative way and talk about it only in the context of love and procreation, which is not the case. It's not true at all. So, you know, how do we...
I think you should do like a mixture of maybe 80% truth, 20% fantasy for certain things. You know, like certain things it's like, yeah, let the kids be kids, let them enjoy thinking that there's this and there's that. But then there's certain things that I wouldn't let Joaquin live in a fantasy life about, especially in regards to like how we're living our lives. Like for example, Christmas. We don't celebrate Christmas, so I'm not gonna put that thought in his head that there's Santa Claus and there's this, and if you're a good boy, and I don't want to. I'm not gonna put that in his head. The Easter Bunny, we're not, you know, Christian Judeo or anything, so we don't need to learn anything about the Easter Bunny. You know, like certain things like that I can omit from having to do the white lies with him, but certain things like I might do the Tooth Fairy for a little bit, but then he might just end up getting wise as he matures. So some things you don't have to like shatter their dreams. Like sometimes they just figure it out or they just grow out of it or something. But in regards to like sex and relationships and things like that, I want to be 100% honest with him, but I would choose different language to just to go with how he's developing, because I mean, I can't talk to him like he's a 29-year-old who's experienced life. So, but I can still try to have common ground with him, like not talk down to him just because he's a child, and use little cutesy words like we're going to use the proper name for body parts. Right. I'm going to explain to him that there are different types of bodies. There's different ways to show this. There's different, you know, like, and how sex is not equal love. Just all types of stuff that I want to teach him and be very honest about it, because I want him like. And that you discussed this before, how like being honest and using the proper names for stuff that can help prevent things in the future, because they have knowledge about their body parts and what's happening, and if they don't like it and this is wrong and whatever. So I want that to be his experience. I want him to be knowledgeable about himself, about others, and how to navigate, because if he doesn't get like a real world view, he's gonna move around in a way that he thinks is appropriate because of what he saw.
Right.
It reminds me of the a Law and Order episode that I saw. This kid, he was alone a lot. His dad didn't really watch him.
Yes.
And he watched a lot of porn.
And he was like, what, like
11 or something.
Yeah.
And he ended up molesting a lot of kids in his school. And he was just like, but I thought they would like it. And they were like, but why? And he was like, oh, well, in the videos, they say no, stop, but then they really do want it. Right. I thought that they really wanted it. So he was in this fantasy, and no one told him that that's not real, that this is a movie, that, you know, this is role playing. Sometimes people do say no, but they mean yes, but you have to have that consent prior. Like, you know, like he wasn't explained these things, so he went to school and forced kids to do stuff thinking this is how it's supposed to happen. So I'm definitely that's an extreme case, but I don't want Joaquin to be like that and to be like, but I thought that, and I don't want him to have a harsh reality because he hurts somebody on accident or hurts himself thinking that this is normal, you know, whatever it is he's doing.
I'm actually trying to remember where that point was where you kind of grew up out of believing some of these things, because I do believe that, you know, fantasy is a beautiful thing, and, you know, I think that it sparks creativity and all this stuff. And when you were little, I tell the story all the time that she walked in on me watching Stephen King's It, and she literally walked in when, like, the clown's face was like, you know, the teeth and everything, and she went screaming to her room. You were like 4 or something, 3 or 4, and that was it. She was terrified, and she kept thinking that a monster was under her bed or in her room when it was time to go to sleep.
In the toilet.
So I kept trying to ease her mind, but there was nothing I could do. And then finally I said, I got it. I bought this monster spray, and all you have to do is to spray it around and no monsters will come. So I just got this bottle, and I decorated it, and I put water in it, and every night I would come into the room and spray under the bed, spray in the closet, spray everywhere, and you would watch me as I do it, and then you felt so much, you know, comfortable, and that helped for a little while. And in that moment I was like, is that a lie, or is it something to help? You know, like, I don't know, because in my utopian mind, I was like, if I could do it all over again, would I be a parent that just told the truth about everything? And then I'd be like, I wonder, because I know that there are parents out there who do tell their kids the truth about something, or specifically, let's talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And I practiced to be a Jehovah's Witness for many years, and they don't celebrate any of those things, right? So if a child is born into that religion, they don't get to experience that. And I remember all the kids, that everybody has jokes about Jehovah's Witness kids, right? Because they don't participate in the things that everyone else participates in, so they're outcasts. And so do I want my kid to be an outcast in addition to, you know, all these other things? Is it harsh? Where's the line? I would love to hear from people if people want to respond to that, because I was like, where is that line? Because I don't know. I actually don't know. I think fantasy is fine, but when you said, you know, we don't celebrate this, so I don't have to tell them about that, and I would take another stance on that and say, well, no, I would say, and I think you would agree when I say this, that I would talk about it, that I would say this is what some people celebrate. Yeah. And in this country, this is what other people celebrate. And in here, you know, like, it is just about giving information that is actually factual. Like, this is happening. People celebrate these things. This is the origin of it. I want to give information so that at some point, Joaquin can make his own decisions, whether he wants to partake in Christmas holidays or not. Yeah. What, you know, and so that, to me, that's really important, because we're not actually funneling our children into, like, molding them into the idea of what we want them to be. Really, it is giving them as much as possible so they can mold, you know, whatever they want for themselves. And it makes me think about the documentary we saw on, was it Hulu? Yeah, Hulu, Far From the Tree. I recommend that movie. Yes. Documentary, Far From the Tree. And it was literally about parents talking about their experience and their journey as to, like, what happens when you have a child that is completely different from you, that either did through an illness, an action that they did, an idea that they have, something that they are completely different than you. Like, how do you navigate that? You know, that was a very very interesting documentary. So I recommend it, and it's a very diverse too, in terms of definitely not race, but in terms of
the type of children.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like it's not just one box like what you think about. It's many different families where they have different kids and how they navigate their lives with their kids' differences. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right, and so what else? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. Like, really, for me, it's really thinking about how we share that information. Where is the line? Love to hear from you about that. And I still can't remember where that shift came for you when you like kind of grew up and knew like, that doesn't exist. That's for kids. And then there's this thing that happened. Yeah, that thing that happens where it's like a rites of passage. Like, now I'm an older kid, so that's just for little kids, and it's accepted. Really, right? It's accepted. The lie was totally accepted, but it's a thing. So maybe it shouldn't be, maybe I'm calling it the wrong thing and saying it's a lie, but yeah.
Just a story.
A story.
It's a story. Fairy tale.
Yeah, but I'm also, telling the truth in general, especially when we're trying to talk to our children, relates back to like, comprehensive or holistic sexuality information. It's like the truth, right? So talking about heterosexual, romantic, procreative love is a tiny portion of that, right? And so we are doing a disservice when we don't give more information, because when we do give all of that information, and even in like when we give all that information, we really allow for the best possible outcome for our children and our relationship with our children, because we're kind of like really talking about a lot of different things, right? If you kind of talk to your kid in one way, my kid is going to be this heterosexual lawyer or and then they don't fit that, then they fail. They just automatically fail. So let's think about like what success would look like, and success means like
many things.
Yes, many things.
Some people are successful because they're still alive. That's
absolutely
little wins.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about that fantasy versus reality. Where's
white
that line?
lies, truth, fantasy storytelling.
White lies, yeah. Yeah, all of that. Quite interesting. And I guess I really do think it's a conversation that's always going to be had, right? I guess it will shift. But we need to get to the beach, so it was
Adios.
Lovely talking to you. Adios.
Ciao, hasta luego.
See you next time.
Bye.